Thank you for joining us for today's Facebook Live chat discussion on the DOJ's Victim Witness Assistance Program in observation of National Crime Victims' Rights Week. My name is Courtney Cochran, and I am a social worker in the Criminal Division's Victim Services Unit of the Delaware Department of Justice, and I will be the moderator for today's chat. Throughout this week, the Delaware Department of Justice will be providing resources and tips to victims of crime. In today's chat, we'll discuss what the DOJ's Victim Witness Assistance Program is, what the rights are for victims of crime, and how victims of crime may seek help. If you have any questions during the chat, please submit those in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer them. Let's get started. Today, we have two panelists, Jen Kutney-Soper, a victim and witness social worker in the Domestic Violence Unit at the Delaware Department of Justice, and Melissa Shockley, lead social worker at the Delaware Department of Justice. The first question is, what is the Victim Witness Assistance Program?
So the Victim Witness Assistance Program is a statewide unit. It's one of the few statewide units that we have here at the Department of Justice. We provide assistance to victims of crime and their families. That assistance is through working through the criminal justice process during what's called the prosecution phase of a case. We also assist witnesses to crime in the same manner. Our unit is staffed by social workers and victim services specialists, and we can offer assistance by making referrals for counseling, medical assistance, psychological treatment, transportation assistance, other services that may be needed, as well as providing support during pretrial case preparation and during trial as needed. Part of our job is to ensure that the rights of victims are upheld in the criminal justice process.
Melissa, what is the prosecution process like for victims?
Well, the first answer that comes to mind is it's stressful, or at least initially. Crime can leave a victim in turmoil and sometimes in shock, and oftentimes they're frustrated. At times, victims have experienced physical injury, emotional distress, and or even financial loss. In the Victim Services Unit, our role is to provide a victim with information that will hopefully help them through the criminal justice process. Information and knowledge is power. We talk with them, listen to their concerns, hear their fears, and work to try and answer their questions. And at the end of the day, we're here to give the victim a voice in what can be a complicated process. The Victim Services Unit at the Department of Justice will help with keeping a victim informed about when a case is scheduled in court and what can be expected at the different stages or events, such as preliminary hearing, arraignment, case review, trial, and or sentencing. These events can seem like a complicated and confusing process. Delaware's Victims' Bill of Rights allows a victim to be a part of the process. The Victims' Bill of Rights allows them to be present in a court hearing if they wish to do so. And in pre-COVID times, our unit would meet and accompany a victim to the courthouse for a hearing. But that changed last year, and quote, appearing remotely became the new normal. And we became dependent on receiving Zoom links. Over the past year, we've been providing Zoom links to our victims and appearing remotely ourselves as well. Thankfully, the courts have recently been handling more matters in person, and it's anticipated that more in-person hearings will be scheduled for victims. Probably the biggest thing that we give a victim is we make sure that we are communicating with the prosecutor in hopes that a case can resolve with the victim's best interests and wishes being heard. And finally, we're able to help our victims with resources. Sometimes victims are eligible for help through our VCAP program, which is the Victims Compensation Assistance Program. We can help them fill out an application, attach some needed documentation, and get it submitted for consideration for help with their bills and other things such as lost wages and other losses they may have experienced. We also help victims by making referrals for counseling, and we help victims make requests for court-ordered restitution for losses that were incurred as a result of a crime. We are here to guide, direct, and help.
Thank you. And we'll be talking more about VCAP later in today's chat. Jen, how can a victim of crime seek assistance from the Victim Witness Assistance Program?
The first and probably easiest way to connect is to call the office for the county that the crime occurred in. So I'm up in Wilmington, and the number here in Wilmington is 302-577-8500. And that's to the criminal division in the Wilmington office. In our Dover office, the phone number is 302-739-4211. That's the criminal division in Dover. And our criminal division in our Georgetown office, which is where Melissa is 302-856-5353. And if you call the criminal division and ask to speak to the social worker, the administrative assistant who answers the phone first can look up the case, find out who it's assigned to, and then route your call to the correct person.
Thank you. Melissa, where should a victim of crime report the crime?
Well, if you are a victim of crime, then you should make that report to the police as soon as you are able. If it's an emergency, then make sure that you're calling 911, and that will start the police process so they can respond to your need and investigate. They'll want to know your name, the location and crime was committed, the date and time it happened, and of course, they will want to know what happened. Sometimes it's pretty difficult to share the details of your life with a stranger, but that police officer is there to help you. The officer will get information from you to begin an investigation, and that's always the starting point. And the officer will make it, if the officer makes an arrest, should there be probable cause that a crime was committed.
What is the Victim's Bill of Rights?
So the Delaware Victims Bill of Rights is a part of the Delaware state law that dictates what rights the victim of a crime has during everything, during the reporting phase to the police, the prosecution phase, and sentencing and post-sentencing. These can include things like when a crime is initially reported, the victim has to be provided an explanation of their rights, information about availability of social services and other victim assistance, a victim's copy of the initial police report, victim services, referrals to police-based victim services often occur at that point. Many jurisdictions for police departments here in Delaware have their own victim services unit, and for some of our smaller municipality police departments, those are serviced by the Delaware Victim Center, which is run by Delaware State Police Victim Services. Victims are also entitled to information regarding pretrial release or bail of a defendant, and contact to an agency to check the status of the arrest, either to the police department or to a referral to what's called the VineLink program, which is a victim notification program for pretrial detention. During prosecution, a victim is entitled to an explanation of the process. Sometimes my favorite phrase is that I translate legal to English because legal seems to be its own language sometimes. So an explanation of what those court processes are and what to expect as they occur. A victim also has the right to be heard by a prosecutor. Sometimes our prosecutors are hard to get a hold of individually because they are very, very busy running in and out of court. And oftentimes your social worker at the Department of Justice is the easiest point of contact with that prosecutor. And that's our job to make sure that not only is the victim heard by the prosecutor, but to explain what the prosecutor is doing to the victim. Victims also have the right to be present anytime that there is a court hearing. So anytime that there's an open court hearing, a victim's got the right to be there. Case reviews, trial dates, sentencings, etc. Those are all avenues that a victim can access and see what's going on in their case if they choose to. If they don't choose to, we can work with them other ways as well. You have the right to not be disciplined at work. So if you have to miss work because you have been subpoenaed as an essential state's witness in a case, your employer can't take disciplinary action against you for missing work. our office has to contact you regarding any proposed plea agreement and notify you of crimes for which the defendant has been convicted and what is being ordered in a sentencing order, explaining a sentencing order. Even if a person is in court, sometimes all of the emotions and all of the adrenaline make it difficult to understand what's being said. And oftentimes we will sit through the sentencing hearing with you to help you understand what is happening and what all of those legal words and numbers and things mean that the judge has just said. And then there are notifications and after conviction victim services that are available. The Department of Corrections has a wonderful post-conviction victim services program that work with people to talk about planning for eventual release dates, planning for probation periods, things along those lines. And we can make referrals from our office to the Department of Corrections Victim Services to assist with that transition so that things aren't missed in the meantime.
And does it matter if a victim doesn't speak English?
Nope, absolutely not. It absolutely does not matter if a victim is not able to speak English. I feel like if there's any positive that came out of COVID this past year, we in the Victim Services Unit have worked pretty darn hard to come up with all kinds of ways to speak to our victims, especially those that are non-English speaking. We have the ability to work with victims of all languages, including Creole, Chinese, Russian, and so much more. Through some grant monies, the Victim Services Unit has established a language line account that allows us to call a non-English speaking victim through an interpreter on a three-way call. The interpreters are available 24/7 in pretty much any language you're going to need. Although a phone call is usually our go-to way of reaching our victims, not everyone and not every victim has a phone or a phone plan that allows unlimited calling or minutes. The Department of Justice has provided each of us a cell phone to call our victims, from which has been a blessing with our work from home requirements. It allows us to send a text message to identify to the victim who we are and what we're trying to reach them about. Many times we are successful and we're pretty proud of that. We have downloaded and installed the Google Translator app, which allows us to text message in other languages. And finally, we have a translator option through our Word program on our computers that pretty effectively allows us to translate a letter to a victim in another language. So no, it absolutely does not matter if a victim doesn't speak English. I feel like we, especially through COVID-19, we work through a lot of ways to reach out to our victims to give them all kinds of ways to connect with us.
Does the Victim Witness Assistance Program work with the Victims Compensation Assistance Program?
Yes, we work with the Victims Compensation Program pretty frequently. VCAP, which is the acronym for the Victims Compensation Assistance Program, is also a unit here at the Department of Justice. We work very closely with the investigators over in that program to ensure that victims who are eligible for services are able to access the assistance that they need in order to recoup some of the financial burden that is laid on victims of crime. It can be anything from medical expenses for emergency treatment, ambulance bills, mental health counseling, funeral and burial, moving a domestic violence victim, help relocation with relocation costs, all sorts of benefits that VCAP can help with, and they are willing to hear what each individual victim needs as well, and we provide advocacy for them both to VCAP and assistance with understanding from VCAP.
Thank you. All right. It looks like there are no questions at this time from the audience, but if at a later point those who are watching a replay of the chat have a question, please submit them below and we will get back to you. Well, that concludes today's discussion on the Department of Justice's Victim Witness Assistance Program. I'd like to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their day to provide resources and information to those who watched. Please remember that as part of our National Crime Victims' Rights Week, the Attorney General's Facebook page will be raising awareness of various crimes while providing tips and resources. Please tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. for a Facebook live chat discussion on child abuse and neglect. Thank you for tuning in, and please stay safe and healthy.